Thank you so much. So ZENcast Live, ZENworks Service Desk, getting started. We're going to take it a little bit slower this time so that we can see what those configurations are. Next time, we're going to do some ZENworks Adaptive Agent troubleshooting, and we hope to have a guest on for that. Um, Again, we meet the first and third Tuesday of each month, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, North America. Microfocus Support and Training Channel. You can find us and others out under the playlists. And you can see here that we have different of the Microfocus products that are out there with videos and training sessions. Okay, there's GroupWise, Filers, ZENcast, ZENworks, COBOL, and everything there. Also, the other thing was the session schedule. You can always see it here, see what's upcoming. We have getting started today. We have ZENworks troubleshooting, and then we have topic review. That's real close to Christmas, so we're really not going to be too heavy into technical stuff there. So you could probably understand that. But we do have a listing of every single ZENcast, the start of the demo, and if there's a second demo. So good stuff out there on this page. You can always sort by how the product you're looking for and get that particular ZENcast. A little bit of house cleaning, log into chat, subscribe to notifications. That way we can have comments and we can review and ask questions inside the chat while we're live. Some of the best YouTube settings would be autoplay off so it doesn't go elsewhere, and then the quality 720p 60. All right. And then don't forget about the ideas exchange that we have out there. We're going through all of these, getting them real. We're starting to clean these up. There's been some out there that have been lingering. We want to make sure we comment to all of these. So we appreciate everything. We have been reading everything you've been putting in. It's just that we have to keep up with it, and we're making a drive to get that taken care of. So be aware that that's out there. Send your ideas in, and that's where we get the great stuff from you guys. This is ZENcast schedule. Again, today's the 16th. Welcome everybody, November 16th, halfway through the month. Getting ready for the North America or the U.S. Thanksgiving coming up. And then we got December right behind us in a new year. Okay. Yeah, one more thing on this. If you please put comments in the ZENcast live upcoming schedule at the bottom, because we would like to know what else you would like to see for the upcoming year. If you need more of imaging, if you need more of policies, if you need more of dynamic forms, I mean, those are some of the recent ones that we've done, but depending on what you're looking for, we'd be happy to put that together for you so that you get what you need out of this particular form. So we have a few things to announce. The Unified Endpoint Management and Protection version list. We're currently at 2020 Update 2. If you haven't gotten there, look towards doing that upgrade. There is an upgrade cookbook, 7024089, and you can go out there and see that, and it'll help you go through the actual upgrade. There's a What's New README out there. There's information about the Update 2. So you're all set to actually kickstart this and start planning your migration to Update 2. A couple of components. So involved in ZCM Update 2 is ZCM, ZAM, ZPM, ZESM, and ZFDE, as you know, imaging. There's Admin Studio and so forth. So if you haven't picked any of these out, like Admin Studio, we're now at edition 2021. Go on out to your SLD and make sure you get the latest one. ZRS 7.8 is out there. What's new in README? ZSD 821, a service desk, which is there's a What's New in README, and also a cookbook out there to do your upgrade. Okay, and it goes through the particular ways to do the upgrade and what to look for and reminders and so forth. Okay, there's scenarios and sequence what to look for. And then, of course, MFDC 21.7 is out currently. 21.9 will be released at the end of this month. And that will have some added features, and we'll cover that next time. Some reminders. If you have an appliance, make sure you get those security updates done. Normally in November is one of our quarterly updates for security patches and OS updates. especially for those appliances. And then the PRU's out there monthly, right? And then if you're doing DB migrations, let us know. Or if you're wanting to do DB migrations, let us know. We want to improve the migration process. ZCM is pretty well locked in. ZENworks Service Desk, we have a migration tool we're developing from any supported to any supported, but we'd love to hear your feedback on what you're trying to do and what you'd like, what your intentions are for the future on the databases. Okay. Again, we covered the ideas exchange and votes. Also, ZCM Windows 7. We've had some questions. Are we supporting Windows 7 support? It is in the SLD, but as you know, the SLD has a very long list, and trying to dig it out may be hard. But stay tuned. They're trying to fix that so that it's easily found. And you'll get an announcement on your ZCC Z News as well as on the community blog post. Okay, so if you're subscribed to the community's blog post, you'll get a notification of that, and then the Z News when you open up ZCC. So stay tuned for that. Keep an eye out for that. There is a download for that, so just be aware of that. There's also a Zookeeper shutdown, but it's only for particular configurations. But if as you shut down or if you have an issue where Zookeeper crashes on shutdown, go on out to the site. We can get a patch for you. I just want to make sure you're aware that that's available to you. And it's only in particular situations, so it's not everybody across the board. All right. So that's something for you to review. We are going to have a pre-beta ZENworks Service Desk 8.3, and it's going to be out on the web, out in the cloud, where you can actually run scenarios and kick the tires. So that way you can give us feedback. If you provide us feedback and you run through the scenarios, you'll be entered into a drawing for some swag. So that'll be announced this week. That'll be announced by the end of the week. We're finalizing the survey. We're finalizing some details on the scenarios, and they're just doing some great stuff with ZENworks Service Desk. The team there is doing some great stuff. So we want to get it out there before we do code lock or even go into the beta, right? So that way we can make sure we fix those things that we may have missed in the UI or how they're doing things, how you do things within Service Desk. Just want to make sure that you have a pre-look at that, and then you get to be put in for a drawing as well. So Technical Insight Series is still going on every Wednesday, October 6th through December 1st. And then also product update monthly webinars. Robin Redgrave in the UK does a filer, GroupWise, and OES iPrint. So all you have to do is register for his particular monthly product webinar update, and he puts them out for a yearly to put it in your calendar. So if you have any of those products and you want to do something similar to this for that product, Robin's doing it. Okay. And then he did put out a security blog for Filer, but you know, it had some general information in there that was really good. So it's something you might want to look into as far as security overall for some of the products. And even though it's focused on Filer, it really has some great tips in it. So be aware that's there. Recap: last week we had Ron Van Herk, solutions consultant out of Europe, doing streaming from everywhere, right? He showed us a few things about Micro Focus Desktop Containers application streaming, and then some packaging, and we got some good insight on what's currently available for that product. And if you have remote workers and you've already done ZENworks, you know, you can integrate those two. You can really leverage the products you currently have and be able to keep your people working and keeping things secure, both on the customer's end and the corporate end the data files. So let's get into a little bit of today. Today's agenda: ZENworks Service Desk getting started for ease of evolving the ZENworks Service Desk product, right? It's fun to jump in and get things going, but there's also some, I'm going to cover some tips and things to look at during your environment setup, things that may be missed, some gotchas and so forth. Um, part of um, part of the thing today is, yeah, we'll just go through a couple of these, open a couple of these. Yeah, getting started, knowing what you need to do, what additions do you want, right? Do you want just the incident management, or do you want the ITIL management? Or do you just have the two tech and you want the store? That's all available to you if you own ZENworks. And then for a cost upgrade for the ITIL, but if you own ZENworks, you get the two tech license. You can throw up the store and be using ticketing with just the two tech license that you get. But even with the trial, you get the full ITIL version. You can try it out. So if you're new out there and you want to see what ZENworks Service Desk is all about, download the trial and you can do that. Also, make sure you understand, of course, the system requirements, what's going on in the system requirements, what your email servers, what virtual appliance support you have. Understand the user roles. It's very important so that you have the right users in the right place, right, and the right privileges and permissions. Okay, and then assess your organization. It's very important to assess your organization under the system config here. You know, who is the support staff? What can they support? What types of requests can they deal with? And again, remember, this isn't just for IT. You can use this for facilities. You can use this for mechanics and auto repair, or a fleet for oil changes and stuff. This product is based on ticketing and being able to do that. We do integrate into some IT and some ZENworks, but you can use this for just about any ticketing needs that you have. And that's where you assess your organization. What teams, what's the business function, and then what do they need support for? So you're analyzing what the needs are, and then you're analyzing who can support those needs, whether it's staff, IT, facilities, or maintenance, those types of things. And they give an example here. Okay, other things we're going to cover is having customers and users. Now, in the system, users are basically the technicians and supervisors, and then you have customers, and then of course you have partners and finance and so forth. But the primarily used is the customers and users. They have to have an email address, okay, in order to come into the system. That's what everything works off of, is the email address. And then the items, the types and categories, we're going to talk about how to set those up properly. Unexposed settings. So again, if you aren't using, if you have the ITIL version and you're not using configure in that configuration process, or the SLAs, or certain processes that aren't being used, they're not exposed until you turn them on. Okay, and we'll cover a few of those. That's kind of in the gotchas. And then the templates and branding. And then there is a training out there to implement the ZSD store. The nice thing about this training is it starts from beginning to end, kind of like what we're going to do today. So you have a visual on what's going on. So let's talk about a few things. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to switch over to, let me minimize this guy a little bit so I can see my screen. There we go. All right. We're going to, I basically imported the ZSD, the latest ZSD 2.0, and you'll say, well, why isn't it 2.1? Well, the online updates takes care of the subversions. Okay, so I have that, but some of the things you have to do is, again, you can download the hypertype. I did the VM, and you can download from your SLD or the trial. Virtual appliance server components, you need to add a volume, and even though the memory is preset, you can change that if you need to do that. I would go higher if anything. I wouldn't go lower. And then, of course, understand your email server support, and understanding you may have two different servers for harvesting and then sending notifications. Some customers have that, or they have the same. So incoming server would be as a customer places a call or responds to an email for a ticket, it'll come back in and it's harvested, right? And then it's sent on its way inside the system. And then outgoing is those notifications for tickets and alerts and so forth. And then, of course, the protocol, the port, and your authentication into that email server, obviously. And then you need to understand the type of database, whether it's internal or external. So those are kind of common. If you just throw up like I have, the database is already built in. And if I choose to keep it that way, I can just do nothing with the database and it will be on the Postgres internal database. Okay. Otherwise, we can change that database configuration to an external as we need to. I'm going to go ahead and if I power this machine on, we're gonna get an error because I didn't add that additional volume that I mentioned over here. Okay, so I just wanted to let you witness that, see that it'll protect you in some ways to say, hey, by the way, it's not completely configured. You need to power down and add a volume, and then we'll cover adding that volume in just a moment. So you can see here that on my settings, hopefully this is big enough. On my settings, I have 2 disks here, right? This is one that's pre-done. If I go over to the one I just fired up, you can see I don't have a second disk. I just have the single disk. Okay. We're going to add that in just a moment. It'll take a minute. Notice it's starting and stopping, starting the Postgres, stopping the Postgres, doing its maintenance, coming up, and it's going to yell at us in just a moment. Okay. So first power up, you do want to make sure that you have that VA storage disk enabled. We're going to add that. It won't tell you until it tries to add it. So we will see it come up in a second. It'll ask us for all the details. And can I make this bigger? That's probably pretty small for you guys. Settings. Options. Not sure where that view is. Oh, there it is. So it's saying the appliance requires additional disks. So power off the virtual machine. So we're going to go ahead and power it off. We're going to go ahead and set the settings. No panic. You can just restart it again. We're going to add another one. The database doesn't take too much. I like to give at least 50 or higher. So we're going to add a hard disk. SCSI. I don't have an existing virtual disk. So I'm going to create a new virtual disk and label it as 50 gig. And in my case, I'm going to store it in a single file. Now again, we're going to relabel this as VA storage, which is a common for the second disk, a label for the second disk. And we're going to go ahead and go OK and fire this guy back up. This should start its going. The other things you'll need obviously is your root password, your IP address, subnet mask, gateway, DNS name, and so forth, so that you can obviously communicate with it. So this should come up. It's going to ask us those questions right in here. Again, I wonder if I got a bigger view. There we go. All right. So it found the disk obviously because it's getting a little bit farther. It'll take a couple minutes. Let me move this a little bit. Yeah. So you got the EULA, right? We're going to scroll over. We're going to accept the EULA, whatever language and keyboard you'd like. We're going to accept it, and then it's going to ask us for the passwords. And they have to obviously match. If they don't, it'll kick you out. It'll kick back and say, by the way, it doesn't match. If I do next here, actually, let me set my date, my time, Pacific, USA, and we're Okay, and if I hit next, it's going to say, by the way, the second version of the password doesn't match. Try again. So you're not kicked all the way out. You move forward, hit next, give it a host name, which will go ZSD ZENcast 821.digitalair.com. And then it's going to say, do you want static or DHCP? We're going to hit next, and we're going to give it a static. And I know that, oops, I know this one isn't being used. 89, we're going to give it a proper subnet mask. And we're okay with the gateway. DNS server is going to be 60. And I can put another one in. And a third if I wanted to. And we could see our domain searches there. We're going to go ahead and hit next again. It's going to configure the time zone. Oh shoot, I'm sorry. Let me turn this off. Webcam can turn off. Configuring the time zone. And it's configuring the network. Again, we've given it this stuff here. We've given it the IP address and so forth. It's pretty much going to go and check on the disk to make sure if there's multiple disks assigned, it wants to make sure which one. So it will ask us, do we want to assign that disk? And we're going to say, yes, we want to assign this SDB disk. And we're going to go configure. And then it's pretty short from here. We're going to go to the administration console. Now, it'll post that on the console screen if you're not logged into the console, where to go, what the IP address or DNS is with a :9443, which is considered the administration console. That's where you can register online updates. You can update ZENworks Service Desk with the latest features and security patches through online updates. You can do your administration of the OS and of Service Desk core through there. Let's go over here. Oh, let me back this out a little bit. And again, you'll see here it's starting and starting up the services we need. See, it started up the Postgres database, and we have where we need to go at this point. Okay, so we've gotten to this point, 9443. We're going to now log into 9443 and see what we can do there. So let's go here. It was 88, 89. Yep, gotta put HTTPS. Okay. I didn't use my DNS name, but I didn't have it put in my DNS yet. Created that on the fly. At this point, remember the root and the SD admin is what we put in. So we can log in as SD admin with the password we set, hit sign in, and we have this. I'm going to increase, I'm going to move this over just a little bit so we can get back and forth. So you have 5 tiles up here, 5 tiles down here. So you can see there's monitoring, there's system services. If you're going to be contacting the server, you want to have SSHD on. You go back to home over here, you can do the online updates. It's going to request you to log in. You're going to authenticate. You can get this off your SLD. For sake of ease, we'll go to another Service Desk appliance in a minute that already has this configured. But it'll go out, reach out, it'll get all the updates, and after it registers, and then you can install them. And then coming out of it, it'll tell you that there's a restart needed, okay, after it's completed its online updates. Then you have your service desk configuration. If you wanted to go into terminal and file, you can do that here if you're not on the console itself, right? And then you have your classic ZENworks Service Desk, which is the technician portal. And then you have the new ZENworks Service Desk, which is a customer. And so if you want to go in as a technician, you'd go here. We're going to go ahead and select that. Oh, it opens a new browser. Let's go back. Let's go log out. I want to show you the difference between, notice we have a couple of things for appliance configuration here that you can do as SD admin. And then if you go in as root, you can see there's more, right? There's network, there's time, there's digital certificates, storage, firewall, and administrative passwords. So you have more going in as root, but for security purposes, you can give your service desk admin, just SD admin, to administer the appliance itself. So we're over here. We can now log in as admin, passwords admin, until you start bringing in users. Okay. Now, as an administrator, all you get is a setup. If you log in as an administrator, you get the setup configuration. Notice there's no other tabs. You're not getting user, you're not getting customer. Okay, so that's one way of getting in and kickstarting, being able to do things in here, start setting things up so that you can get a supervisor in here. Okay, we have a supervisor here, but let's log in as that. If we look here, we can see that we're super is the username, and by default it's super. So we'll log out and we'll log in as super to see the difference. Now notice it first pops up for any supervisor. It'll pop this up, which is you're getting started, which is a nice quick way to, oh, I need to go configure users in LDAP, or I need to set up teams. You can go to these links and it'll take you right to those privileges or those areas that need to be configured. Okay, the way to get out of it is you can go down to the bottom, I'm done, or at the top you have this hourglass, and it'll take you to the standard landing page for a supervisor or a technician that's a supervisor. But if you notice in the upper right, I'm going to go ahead and increase this a little bit. You have the setup and customer. So if I go into setup, we recognize this as the, hang on, as the administrator. So supervisor can also administer parts of the in the administrator. What do you call it? It's not 9443. It's not the administrator console, but in the configuration of the appliance and settings. So this looks just like this settings by having selected setup here. It gives us exactly what we had for admin. Okay. And then you notice that there is a customer over here. It'll open up a new page for the customer product. Okay, this would be the customer homepage, not the technician or the user, which is here, because all of the customer and users, here's your incidents and your setups and so forth. All right, and then you have your customer, what they will see, and all this branding can be redone. And let's go ahead and, since I have some configured, we're going to go ahead and go over to my 87 box. And we'll take a look at what I have set up. And then this one, we'll close. Well, we can leave that open. So we're going to log in. Roadrunner is configured as a supervisor. So again, he has the user, the customer, and you can see as we go narrower, our top bar diminishes and we have a hamburger menu instead. All right. Okay, so back over to here. So we have the user, the setup, which is the Service Desk Setup, not the administration console, but the Service Desk Setup, which admin and super can get to. And then we have the customer console. Let me see. I lost my. I want to get back my screen so I can see if anybody has questions. No questions yet. Okay. So again, let's go ahead and let's check out the license. We're going to go to user. Actually, we're going to go to setup because there's a few things we need to do. We need to configure the license. And basically you'd go over to setup licenses. Okay, you can see this one's configured. And this happens to be the idle version, so you have extra roles like problem change. If we look at this one here, this is the 87. If we go to setup license, you can see it has all of them as well because it has the trial version. Okay, install date, you can see after 60 days, you need to put a license in after 60 days. Okay. I changed the colors. I put a little branding in here, which is good to have for your customers and your technicians. So we went through licensing, and then we have an email configuration. So this is where, so this is, so you know, this is in order of how you'd really want to set these up. Okay, if you're starting ZENworks configuration, or ZENworks Service Desk, going through this particular presentation will help you set it up logically instead of missing, oh, I never licensed it and now I've forgotten and now I have to go get a license and you know my 60 days is up or something. But if you go through that, you can see there's an email setup. We have incoming and outgoing servers. There's a setup for email. There's test connections and logs. So you can see there's a setup which has some items like how often are you going to poll, okay, and again there's a lot of details here, but I want you to know that these are the primary details to make sure you get through, okay, in this section and this section, okay. Server, you want to make sure you have an incoming server. I have the same outgoing server. I'm actually using the same username for incoming and outgoing. How does your server respond to authentication is here. Okay, and it'll take the default blank, default for if it's left blank. Okay, so there's different components in here to make sure you have a connection. And once you have a connection, you can hit test. Okay, incoming server connected successfully. There is 0 messages, so I have my email server on the back end running. And if we look at my log, we could see email setup configuration successful. Okay. So there we have, these two are important. We'll get to templates later, but these two are important for getting things off the ground. We'll cover this alarm in just a minute because basically if you're in here, if you go to user, notice there's no alarm because you can get alarms as user as well. So these are dependent on which setting you're in, whether it's in the setup setting or the user setting. Okay, so and it basically tells us the import summary for it did an LDAP import. Okay, and we'll cover LDAP coming up. So we logged into 9443. If we look at 9443 on our other server, let me go full screen. You can see we're 879443. Let's go there. We can see this is the administration console. I'm going to go ahead and log in as ZSD Admin. And again, we have our settings for the appliance itself with some configuration settings in here. If we looked in Service Desk configuration, you'll see that we are configured internal. If you wanted to go external, you can do that. You select that and then go to the next page, follow the bouncing balls, and it'll take you to configuring that. So online updates is what I was referring to earlier. You can see that we do not have any reached out. We do not have any needed patches, but we do have installed patches. Okay, so these are the security updates. I did November's already on this one. If you look down here, you'll see every once in a while you'll have a ZENworks Service Desk 821 Service Desk release. That's for some added security stuff in the appliance itself, but it is for version 821, so feel free to install that as well, and we recommend that. Excuse me. Okay, so we did the online updates, and we logged in as a technician. As admin and super, we saw the differences there. We know that there's setup, user, and customer, and then the alarms. We covered the alarms a little bit. It tells us what was done. If you want to dismiss these, you can, and close this. When you refresh the page, it should go away until there's another alarm, right? Until there's something else happening. And if you want to force something to happen, you can always go, I have it configured so I can do another LDAP sync. And then once that's complete, you'll see that. But if we go to reports, we can see that in the system log, oh, it's already done, LDAP sync. Has occurred. Let me go full screen because then I have, no, it didn't do it again. Oh, it's because I have my view so large. Hang on. Let's go reports. So if I go to setup LDAP, select test, it'll tell you what's found. And we'll cover LDAP in just a sec. I think I have it on the list. But notice the alarm appeared again. And it's going to tell us the ADS import has been done again. And what it's found and any errors. Okay. All right. So next on my list was LDAP. So email and LDAP, two important things. Oh, the reason why I didn't put LDAP on there yet is because you can actually create your own users here. I can create a user. Setup. And user. Well, let's go to the other one, and we can go in here and we can go. We don't have any email set up, but we can go and create users. See new user. So you can put in the demographics of that user, what they're going to be: finance manager, administrator, supervisor, technician, or partner. The default porter you want them to go to. If they're a technician also, they will have two to select from. But you can add users, customers, as well as users over here. Users, again, are technicians. So they'll have a little bit different configuration because they're managing requests and incidents and problems, right? And that's what I was coming to here, making sure that you have a name and the roles and processes, the knowledge configuration, and supervisor if they are a supervisor. So, and then you also, if they aren't a supervisor, you have to put a supervisor in here, which, let me go down here, and by default it's going to be system supervisor. Okay, so we can put in Paul Pedron, PAP, a password, and we're going to say I'm a technician, and I could be a customer too. And the default portal will be a user portal. What do I manage? I manage requests and incidents. Okay. Any change processes? Not at this time. My email address would be paul@digitalair.com. And then I have a system supervisor. I could then save this. There's other things in here. Again, like I said, at least get the mandatory in here. That's what we're covering in this particular slide, is making sure you get the mandatory stuff in, because you can eventually do a line manager, an org unit, and so forth, if you needed to. We're going to hit save, and you'll see now that I am now a user as a technician and a customer doing these particular processes. Okay. If I don't have that process and I log in, I won't see it up above. And what I'm referring to there is if I go in as a user, I need to log in as a user, sorry. Oh, sorry. Log out, log in. My landing page should be the customers, the users. So I have requests and incidents, and then I have these particular duties. Okay, I'm able to respond to operations, and that one, this is a configuration because we're moving to the new portal. It'll take me to requests, service requests here. But there's configuration, there's store setup, and only if I have rights will I be able to do new or promotes and so forth. Okay, so it's all permissions based. As you can see here, I'm logged in as Roadrunner, and I have even more. I have service in here, whereas on the other one I don't have service because there is no one with that service process assigned. Okay, and that's what I meant by this will change dynamically depending on what processes are, and that's one of the gotchas that I have listed. Again, we're going to go to Teams. If I go to Teams, I can go to User. Okay, because part of user setup is Teams. By default, there are some. I've added a couple more. So again, let's go back over here and let's go to user. I'm not a supervisor, so I can't do a team. Let me log in as a super again. And we'll go to user. Notice the teams showed up. Teams. And we have some default teams here. Okay. At which time I can then start saying I want Paul on this team. And I don't need a system supervisor because we don't want system supervisor to be notified of any particular calls. We need to do team lead as Paul and take system supervisor out. Oh, because I don't have them in the layer yet. And this is where you have to configure it step by step. Layer, because we have layers, we need to make sure I can't assign him anything if he's not in a layer. So now I can change this to Paul. I can remove system supervisor because he's not in any layers. And then you have some priorities here. Again, don't really need to go into too much detail except for teams, you want to set up the informational layer. So you need a user created so that you can add them to the team. And then that particular team, you can set up a display name for the team. You can say incident team. And what that will do is help you when email notifications come in, it'll have that in the subject line. Okay, we'll hit save. All right. Again, layers and information just on those parts, so you can finish through those. Now, as far as customers, again, we're in as system supervisor, so we're going to go to customers, and we can create a new customer. Notice I'm in there because I told myself I am a customer also. If I took myself out as being a customer, now there's no other customers in there except for system supervisor. So we can say Jane Doe, J Doe, email jdoe@digitalair.com, a customer. Excuse me. I'm going to hit save right there, and we can now see that she's a customer. We now have a customer. Okay? And that's the minimum you really need to have there. So what are we placing tickets on? Obviously, we need to place tickets on particular items. So as we go to home, as we go to configuration, we need items, but we need to have categories to create the item. So if you think about it as you need a big bucket, and then you put in types in the bucket, and then items for the types. So you basically create it from categories, as mentioned here, categories, types, and items, so that you can see so you can actually relate them in the proper manner. And we're going to just go over to the other service desk so you can see some of the created items. So we created a category, and I think I have something in printer scanners. All right. You have custom fields, up to 40 custom fields if you wanted to add different things like um, model number, or different. Well, we have some here. Field resolution. They have some default ones here, as well as some other customs. So you can create other things to have, so when you bring up that item, you have some categories you can put it in. Okay. So in this instance, we have cartridges, we have consumables, we have network address, serial number, and so forth in the category. Under types, we have some printers. We have an HP, let's say. Notice the item category is printers, scanners. All right. And then if we go to items, we have a HP here, a particular asset that has the type, the category that we created, and now the actual item itself. And what's the warranty on this item? Is it deployed, or is it just sitting on the shelf waiting to be deployed? Who owns it, and so forth. Okay. So again, when you're going through this process of creating items, you'd want to create them in category, types, and then items in that configuration, in that order. Then you have privileges for the users. This is what the user can see and do. Now remember, the user is a technician. If we go to the next one, we have the customer. So if we go to the user, again, we have this guy set up over here. So we're going to go to, we're in the system supervisor. We're going to go to user, users, Paul. Again, what can he do? Request processes, change processes and internal processes, what he can receive. Can he do anything on the knowledge base? Can he publish knowledge base? Let's go ahead and edit. Okay, so you have these settings for that user. You can go ahead and, is he a survey manager? What country, what time zone? Again, if I log in, notice my clock on here. If I log in as, I'm logged in as super, which is 8:50. If I log in as Paul, it's 8:50. So my time actually is 9:50. And that's because the system, the users are set up with Pacific time zone as the time zone. Let me go back. So the users don't pick up what the appliance time zone is, and that's one of the gotchas as well. So if I now go to users and say, no, this guy is actually in mountain time, and I'm jumping ahead on one of my gotchas, but if we set this to mountain time, we can hit save. And then if I log out and back in, it won't be 8:52, it'll be 9:52. Oops, Palpy. So my time zone is different, so it gives me that for now. As I do my tickets, all that time is being processed while I'm working on tickets. Okay, the proper time. Because if there's SLAs involved, you want to make sure you're meeting your SLAs. Let me go back in this super. Get past the getting started. If you do decide to set up an LDAP, which most people do, you could then go to the setup LDAP, and then you could create a new Active Directory or LDAP server, and then fill in the components. All right, again, default time zone for that LDAP server. Okay, because time sync is everything, right? So you have the appliance time sync with the other servers, but you also have your users, which is in it maybe in a different time zone. Okay. Hope that's clear as mud. If we look at this particular setup, we can see my LDAP is Active Directory, digitalair.com, have a couple of IPs, or mountain time. In the advanced is the key. So the second part of this is setting up the user groups. All right. In your Active Directory, I set up a user group for administrators, for supervisors, technicians, partners, managers, finance, and customers. If they have an email address, they will get imported into those respective roles. And so that simplifies the process. Okay. The key here is making sure you have these on your directory server, whether it's eDirectory, Active Directory, LDAP, whatever it is, and then syncing them up. So once you're able to connect here, you can test, and then it's going to check the advanced tab and see if it found any of those items or users in these groups. Okay. Let's see. You can turn on and off disabled accounts. You can include customers and so forth. The one thing I do want to note as a standout, the groups here is not the Active Directory groups. This is importing groups from AD for other processes. Okay, so that's more advanced. We're not going to get into that. I just don't want this. If you check this box, that won't help you for the users and technicians. This gets confused sometimes with what it's really doing. And again, if you're not certain, all the time, anywhere within here, you can go ahead and select the help in the upper right hand corner, and it'll bring you to that page of the documentation to help explain what's going on in that particular page. Okay, so very important that you know that help is right next to you the whole time. So again, you want the technician settings. You have different sections in here. You have, going back to users. I'm sorry, we're in privileges. We're in privileges. My bad. We're in the setup privileges for user, customer, requests, and system. So under user, different things that you want to double check that they're able to do. Can they create a quick request? Okay. And again, your help is right there. So feel free to use it. There's work hours, there's configuration, and there's knowledge, whether or not he can publish, um, what users, whether they're a technician, partner, supervisor, or manager, can do what with knowledge, and what type of user, supervisor, technician, partner, and finance can do what with configuration. Okay, that's where those settings are, and that's for the technicians or the users, right? Then you have the customers, and this is important because right now, Um, they can create an account. They can have default web access. Their default tab is home. So if I go to a a customer in this setting, so Roadrunner as a customer, notice there are no incidents I can even create here. I can go to self-help. I can see the knowledge base. I don't have any incidents. So one thing to remember is that's where this control is. If I say I want to be able to view incidents or create and edit incidents, which means I can create requests, I can create change requests, I can create service requests. Once I save this, it has been updated. If I refresh this screen, I should be able to create incidents. And notice there's only 4 cards. Now there's 6 cards. Okay? Which here's our new requests. And I can now create an instant, service request, and change requests. Okay, so that was added in that quick. So this is the controls and privileges for the customer. And the default tab, where do you want them to, where's their landing page when they first come in? Okay, so very important on those. If we look at, that's user at customers, to be able to do that, again, remember your time zone. Okay, and view shared requests is in here as well. I missed it. It's at the top, I thought. Or view technician. I think that's what I wanted to put there is view technician. Oh no, view shared requests by ownership or org unit. So you can have a different view depending on which you want. This is default, obviously, by the way. Okay. All right. And if you do have LDAP and in Active Directory set, you have a couple of controls for the customers here. And you can look those up, but you know, include the customers, and if it's in mixed mode, meaning you have some created yourself and some in LDAP. Next we go to our privileges here. Again, we have another default incident, default problem. If these are not configured, um, you won't be able to see them. So if we go to requests, and if these are unknown, you know, what are we using as a default incident? You may have multiple teams. So it'll automatically assign this workflow to that ticket if it's an incident. It'll assign, or this team, it'll assign this team. And again, if we look at teams, under user, teams, we could see default problem team. Okay, it's only one person in here. Again, he's in the layer. All right, so that's again part of the privileges, and being able to set up these 4 tabs are crucial in setting up how you want things to look for the most part. Okay, and some of the primary things to look at are these here, the request settings. Then of course you have review options. I'm sorry, I'm not on the right one. Review options and KBA options. There are some hidden. I'm going to jump into the gotchas. Like for instance, if you're having KBA options and you want to control it, notice that we now have 2 extra items to configure here, depending on what we wanted to do when it's enabled. So they're not displayed, and that's where in my gotchas it says if not displayed, you might not see the setting. Okay. Again, make sure that you go ahead and hit the help, and it will tell you. You can see the request type is here and default SLA. Okay. And then finally the system. What are we looking at for the system? General settings, session timeout. So a couple of important ones are under general settings, you have your session timeout. How long before the session will time out for the technician? Okay, and you can set those. And then enable multi-session. If you say no, then um, you want to double check if you want to terminate the active session. Okay, so enable multi-session means I can log in on this machine, stay logged in, and go to another machine and log in. Otherwise, it'll kick you out if you set terminate active session. Okay. Otherwise, it won't allow you to log in because it will, if it's set this way, enable multi-session no, and terminate active session no, then you can only log into one, and until you log out, you can't log into another. So again, it's an and or type logic. Okay. What else do we have in here? There's some telemetry. So if you're looking at integrating ZENworks, because you have that 2-tech license, you can go to ZENworks integrations. You can set telemetry if you want to. You can enable ZENworks integration and start that path. The documentation has a document just on that. You can then remote control. Basically, you can remote control by selecting the item that's imported from ZENworks, the workstation that's imported. And by selecting that item, you can then remote control that item or manage the bundles on that item if they're in the store. Okay. And it basically launches the ZAA remote control is what I'm getting to. So it's not like you don't have to log into ZCC, but it does the same thing that ZCC would do if you select remote control from ZCC. Okay. And then you have your store configuration. If you're putting items in the store and you're importing, it makes it real handy. Those are some of the details on that particular page. You do have other things like forum options, outages, and so forth. Again, the gotchas, there's always the what's new star up there, the getting started if you're a supervisor, and the help. Very valuable help. Okay. Time different, we covered that a little bit. The console, I log into the console, but the time server says something different on the appliance. And that's because you have a time zone for each of the users and customers. Some of the users are not syncing. Check email configured for that user. Okay. And then not seeing a change or incidents. Does anyone have that process configured? Okay, so we were looking at, let me go over here. We were looking at this, I'm getting them confused now. I must have, oh, here we go. Let's go in here. So by looking at the user setup, and if I look at users, I can see who has what process. Okay, and we can see that this Roadrunner has all the processes, and that's what we're referring to here. Is it configured? If it's not configured, it won't show up because there's no need to. And then we talked a little bit about branching configurations where if it's until you enable it, it won't give you other options to configure that enabled feature. So for instance, active requests no, active requests yes gives you an additional dialog for how many days. I'm sorry, not active archive. Okay. Finally, some branding. You can see the ugly branding I put on this for specifics. And that's primarily to show you that you can just about configure it any color you want. Most people use a lot of the same, but and you can see my customer also has a different color as well. But if you go to the default settings and you go to, you're in setup and you go to customize, you have a customer portal configuration and the user portal configuration. Okay, and then you have banners, portals, and CSS. So when you're getting real nitpicky with the colors, you can go into the CSS. You can go in here, and when there's a change request, the legend, you can modify this and say to the digital air change request. And then when that's displayed when the customer selects report a change request. Okay, so you're editing some of those banners displayed. So if we look at mine again, as far as privileges, sorry, user setup, customize. You can see I have the digital airlines. I have this as the customer banner, which if we go to the customer banner, log out, you can see it's there. Okay. And then on the technician user banner, I put this one. And the portals. For the user, if they get an alert, you can see that below is a list of public alerts. And you could say for digital airline service desk, right? So you can automate these to have in the notification of email a particular set of sayings. You may even say, make sure you check this, have checklists in there or whatever. But that's your, when you get alerts for log in, log out. Notice I put digital airlines in this. So if we go to, let's go to the customer because I don't want to log out. And let's go to the portal, login legend. So we have digital airlines ITL. And if we go to here, you can see digital airlines ITL. So you can put some legal in here if you needed to as well, or a link to your legal. If you log in here, you're obligated for whatever. Okay. So customize is very powerful. You start making it pretty and looking how you need to make it. The last major thing for customize is the templates. If you go back over to email and templates, you can, when you respond, somebody creates an account, you can say hello, you can send them a notification that your account's created, and you can specify what it says in there. So for instance, digital airlines portal, I put in there digital airlines service desk for approved change. Okay, so you have communication, you personalize it. You can also do some variables so that it's consistent for this particular template. Okay, so that's what these templates are for. There's a few resources I wanted to make sure that I notified you of. There's obviously the getting started. We're going to move this back over here. Some very helpful tips if you're uncertain of what's next. You have obviously the getting started, a few links in this document as well if you download this presentation. You have the online help. You have the ZSD documentation, which is online. And you also have the ZENworks Service Desk documentation here. Okay, and that has different areas that I pulled out. If you're trying to customize certain things, there's a, these are all going, oh, I got the wrong link in here. ZENworks Service Customization. Customization cookbook. That's the upgrade cookbook. Didn't come up like I thought it would. Here's the upgrade cookbook, okay, which we talked a little bit about earlier. There's also a, I'm trying to remember the 25033 customization cookbook. And this is handy for if you have a particular system configuration you want to put in place, preferred language, or migrating to a supported database, LDAP source move process. It gives some call outs as well as branding, customizing portal logins, brand color, text, and typesets. And these aren't just um, a single. So for instance, if you want to brand for the portals, go here, and there's different things in here, not just, you'd go through the document to do multiple things. So here's the legal. So this particular one has customizing the portal logins, branding colors, and text. So there's a few things in here that you can brand with. There's also, if you want to modify the request ticket or descriptive size, again, scenarios. Maybe you want the propose button to be present in notes. You can look at this TID. So, and then there's some troubleshooting. So there's a lot of good details in this particular TID that helps you customize your particular service desk. Okay, and then we do have an on-demand training, which I mentioned earlier, which gets started, deployed. If you go here, you'd have to register to view this course, log in to view the course. But it has outlines, it has what we presented here today and more in detail for you to actually get up the store. The ultimate goal in this particular training is bringing up the service desk store, but you have to bring the system up and have users and so forth to get there. So this is a really good training scenario on 8.2.0, which is still applicable today, or I think it's on 8.0, but it's still applicable. Okay. So the rest of this document does have product updates for the different things. Were there any other questions regarding Service Desk that I know I went through it fairly quick. The pattern of being in of this particular document will help you find those different resources. I'll update these links so that you can download one with the fresh links, because they're all going to the online help, it looks like. If there's any questions, go ahead and put it in chat. There are other product updates, but I do want to mention, since you're on the Service Desk, you know this was about Service Desk, there's pre-beta scenarios that'll be announced this week in the community forum. And the exciting thing about that is, again, I mentioned it earlier in the audience or in the broadcast, that we will have scenarios for you to kick the tires on and be able to check out what's going on with the latest build of 8.3 before it's actually released. It's out in the cloud, so you can go out there and you don't have to worry about installing it. Just going out there and doing some scenarios. You get it entered for a drawing for a little bit of swag if you're selected, but we really appreciate your time if you'd go through that. We will be posting that on the community forum this week, so that you can have access to the cloud setup for Service Desk and the different scenarios and the survey. So we're excited about that. There's a lot of new things in it. We've modernized the knowledge base, search capabilities, ratings, and comments. The advanced item search. We've had a lot of input about the new UI needing improvements on the advanced item search. We've improved that in this particular version. Dynamic storm for the store. Being able to use dynamic storms for items in the store, so you can get that information you need when people request particular items. There's audit for requests and knowledge base. So we've also had with the new UI some issues with the knowledge base and the request not properly showing who approved and who did what to that particular ticket. So we've improved that and we're excited about that. Turn this back on so I can. So we have that as well as a delegate role. Those of you that are going on vacation either as a technician or a customer and you need somebody to watch what's going on in your queue, you can now look at the delegate role and see how that works. So, or you have you're a person that helps secondhand to the president or a CEO, and you manage his requests, right? You can then manage those being a delegate or a VIP or proxy, basically proxy. Advanced LDAP sync is coming into 8.3 as well. And then the little things. We've had a lot of issues where in, where's my, I put it over here. We're going to go here. Did I not leave it open? I didn't leave it open. Well, let's go there. Advanced, let's go in. Wrong password. So being able to essentially go to your user requests and being able to group from here, that's coming in 8.3. Okay. Also, these filters, if this is a long enough list, this filter will scroll up, and that's fixed. Also, being able to personalize these, adding these in, and then moving this one over to here, and then doing the size difference, logging out and logging back in 8.3, that'll be improved as well. So those little things that really just hinder productivity, we're really working hard to try and get those back in and modified for you. Again, that's with the survey, with you being able to let us know what's going on, and even doing this cloud pre-beta really helps us before we do code freeze. So I do have the final things in this presentation are the product updates. You can feel free to go through those. If you're having things on the customer portal you're having issues with, there's some emails to help you get started. Some different things on ZCM and imaging. If you have an imaging driver you need, or MFDC, and links in here. So different events as well as articles to look at. So I appreciate everybody being here. We appreciate your time and efforts to come aboard. This was ZENworks Service Desk. Next week is the adaptive agent troubleshooting, and we hope to see you then there also. And we hope that you enjoy your Thanksgiving. If you're in the U.S., your Thanksgiving time with family and friends. Okay. We appreciate you and ask to see you next time. Look forward to talking to you soon.